Hello, everybody. Ooh, I am very washed out right now. Welcome to the stream. Uh, I'm Kieran from Tales from the Basement, and tonight we're going to be painting this here Tau for my Pathfinder's Killteam for Warhammer 40,000 Killteam. I'm going to quickly adjust my lights so I'm not looking so bright right now, but once we get that going, we should be pretty good to go. And with that, I'm going to be pulling up my app for controlling my lights, adjusting some values here. There we go. Hopefully my voice to music is a pretty good balance right now. Bring the paint light down a little bit, and then get daylight on that one, and then for my face, let's go ahead and turn that down a bit. There we go. That's a little better. It might be because this is currently in frame. See if I can fix this. Won't spend too long fixing this, I promise. Alright, I think that's a lot better. So, just finished setting up a couple things here. And voila, we're good to go. So, as I was saying, I am currently building a Shalnoth style Tau Pathfinder Killteam right now. Technically, I think they're hunter cadres. This is not what I'm staying focus. So I kitbashed it. I resin printed a bunch, and I made printed a bunch of bits, and threw a bunch of different kits together, including different heads, different bodies, different legs. This happens to be one of the specialists. This is the demolitions specialist for the Tau Pathfinders. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get on with it. I know tonight's stream is mostly covering how to base coat orange and using contrasting colors, using the color wheel method for choosing complementary colors. So we're going to get a bit into that. And starting with that, we're actually going to base coat starting with the darkest color, because orange is extremely difficult to fix once you have gotten a dark color over it. So I like starting with the dark colors and then cleaning up all the edges with pure white, and then going back over with the orange, and that will be the kind of method for base coating. So we're going to start with Rhinox hide from Citadel as our darkest color. It's going to be the color of the jumpsuit. Squaring a bit of that on my palette. Alright, gonna respond to something real quick. Alright. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, there's one of you in here. How are you doing tonight? Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and start base coating. Starting with his jumpsuit with Rhinox hide, a nice dark brown And you'll notice that if you've watched any of my other live streams, I typically start with a Zenithal Prime with the highlight color being gray. But tonight, it is gray with the highlight being white. And that's very important because we're doing orange. Is that orange is a very delicate color to work with. And if you start with a dark tone, it just does not have good coverage at all. So I like starting with a white and light gray tone to do orange. And that way I get a nice, vibrant orange as we go. If you guys follow my Instagram account, which you can find the link to below, you'll know that I posted an update about trying to figure out the paint scheme for these, or that I finished kit bashing them, but there's going to be a post sometime tonight or tomorrow detailing the different versions of the paint scheme I've gone through to find something that I had liked and enjoyed. I ended up settling on a nice saturated orange scheme using an oil wash instead of an acrylic wash, because I've noticed that when I use acrylic washes over light colors, delicate colors like yellow and orange, they just tend to make the colors look very dirty. In fact, I'll show you an example using one of the first versions of this paint scheme, which is this guy right here. If he is in focus. This guy right here. You'll notice it looks really dirty. And for some of you, that might be what you are looking for. But it wasn't what I was looking for. And then I went for a more saturated orange with this guy. And again, it looks dirty with the acrylic wash. That's it. I was kind of bothered by that, and then I kind of went this mid-ground between the two, using the saturated orange base coat from the second one, using the highlight colors from the first one, and again, as you can see, the acrylic wash just really, it doesn't do the orange color any favors. So that led me to using an oil wash and using the exact same color and highlighting steps as this guy. It's the exact same colors. The only difference is that I used an oil wash and a matte varnish at the end in order to get this. You can tell that this looks a lot cleaner. The orange is a lot more vibrant. It's not as dirty. It's just a far better result that I'm happy with. So we're just going to be going over the steps of how I got this result and how I'm going to be carrying it over into the rest of my kill team. By doing that, we're going to start with the demolitions guy and continue base coating. Just going to keep on base coating. I had somebody recently ask me why I tend to resin print my kill teams instead of buy the official models. And, well, the first part of that question is, well, Games Workshop is expensive. They are very expensive, and to a certain point, they should be. They have employees to pay, they have good artwork, they put out lore and that sort of thing. But especially in recent years, I've been struggling to find those excuses feel weak with the amount or the lack of effort it feels like on Games Workshop's part, and that you're not really paying for value anymore. You're paying for the same miniatures, just reboxed, and that's essentially it. And it's always a touchy subject when you're talking about, well, am I supporting this company? Is it piracy, and I don't know. To be frank, I don't really care. I don't see the value in continuing to support a company that doesn't seem to support us. But the second part of my answer is far more interesting and relevant, and I feel the more important one is I think they look better. I think a lot of the models that you can resin print for Killteam, or really any game in general, can just provide so much more interest and creativity and uniqueness to your models, because let's be honest, when you're painting a model, you want to have a story, you want to have an idea, you want to make it your own. And even if I was using a standard towel plastic body from Games Workshop, I'd be resin printing bits for it to make it my own, to customize it for my personal vision. And you'll notice as we continue to paint these, like in the next couple streams, is painting these guys, is that these guys, I went really hard into the fact that they are a unique, well-trained, but kind of, excuse me while I continue to adjust the camera while I'm talking, unique, well-trained, but more individualistic team of Tau, and that's by design. I think that's a little more reflective of my own personality, in that, as far as the Tau are concerned, I like being part of a bigger group. I like being part of a bigger community. I like the idea of giving yourself to a certain group of people for the greater good. That's your thing. See what I did there? And for my Tau, I wanted that to reflect in them is that they are willing to be a part of the larger collective. They want to do what's right, the greater good. They want to push the values of being Tau. But they don't really fit into the normal rank and file. And that's why they don't really wear their helmets. They have certain adornments like these feathers. I wanted them to have an individual flair. And with that in mind, the best way to do that is by resin printing bits like their heads, different arms, running stances, legs, grenades, and just making them feel unique. And that's one of the reasons why I love Killteam as a creative exercise, is that you get a small unit of a particular faction, and you get to explore, okay, well, what makes this faction unique? If I'm doing the Grey Knights, okay, well, how can I make them unique but still fit into the greater identity of the faction they're a part of? I think resin printing and 3D printing as a whole really allows you to explore those. And then if you're somebody like Jazza from Tabletop Time, you expand that to, well, you love the Space Wolves faction for Warhammer 40k, but you wish they're a little bit different, a little bit more like Native American or anything like that. So you create an entire unique faction of Space Marines that are the Space Bears instead of the Space Wolves. And that's something I love about resin printing, or 3D printing. I should just specify both. It makes them unique in general. So that looks, we've already pretty much base coated the browns. So we're gonna, or the jumpsuit. I'm not done with the browns yet, but we're gonna go ahead and move on to doing the skin tone, which is going to be Sotek Green from Citadel. Make sure you mix that paint up, make everything on my desk, including my camera, bounce around. Alright, making sure that's nice and thin. We're going to start with things like the hands, because for these guys, because so much of their body is covered up, I decided to go ahead and let their skin shine through and that they're not wearing gloves. And also kind of pushing that they're not typical Tau. Typical Tau always wear all the protective gear that they're supposed to. They're always like gonna do the right thing by like rules and regulations. So these guys are just a little different. And the way that they came about in my brain of why I wanted to do them this way, as I mentioned, like bringing in a little of myself. But also, I fell in love with a recent release of the Dark Strider model from Games Workshop. I say recent, I think it was like a year and a half ago or longer. Time has been weird. And how he didn't really fit into the Tau hierarchy. Like, he denied himself like becoming a fire warrior, which is like a great honor, because he wanted to be a Pathfinder. He wanted to be a scout still, and he doesn't always follow orders. He does what he believes is best for the greater good. Orders be damned. And while I also love the model, and you're going to see him, a model that looks a lot like the official one in my collection as we paint these guys. But we're also going to get that vibe from my guys, is that a lot of these could have been fire warriors. They could have been that elite Tau guard. But they chose not to, because they found themselves on the edge of Tau civilization or society, or they just didn't want to go that way. They wanted to continue being out in the field doing that work. And that's kind of where the foundation of this whole unit came from. So yeah, we've already base coated the skin tones for these guys. I'm actually going to come back with a little bit of brown, realizing I missed a spot. Rhinox hide. So we're going to be moving on to the backpack brown, which is going to be Mournfang brown from Citadel. By the sounds of it, I need to buy more brown soon. You might be thinking to yourself, Kieran, for somebody who doesn't really want to support Games Workshop that much, why are you using their paint? Because that's what I have. It's what's available to me. And I don't really like buying a paint online, because I like supporting local business. And most of the businesses around me have Citadel or Army Painter. And if you stick around long enough, or just continue listening, I don't like Army Painter. I think I haven't tried out their speed paint line. I've heard good things, but in general, I do not like Army Painter paint. Which is funny, because I actually do use an Army Painter paint in this paint scheme. But in general, I don't like it. The consistency is weird. It has a gel medium instead of water-based, which makes thinning it act really weird. And if you're a mini painter, you should be thinning your paints. And Army Painter paints, they really need help in the consistency department. Now, if you've listened to my streams before, you know that I'm usually a fan of, oh, just throw paint on there, don't worry about it too much, we're going to fix it later. Or the wash will hide a lot of it. Well, oil washes, we don't have that luxury. It's definitely a paint that relies a little bit more on some technical skill when you're base coating. You want to make sure that you're actually base coating everything correctly, or else it's not really going to work. So we're stepping it up a notch. We're going to be a little bit more careful in our base coating. I say that as you can obviously see that I missed paint about right about here, and I got some on the helmet and that sort of thing. So don't be like me, and if you're using an oil wash, actually have good consistency and that sort of thing. Make sure you know where you're throwing your paint down and all that jazz. Alright, so the backpack is now base coated. I'm going to save the feathers for later. I'm not going to worry about those quite yet. And I'm going to go ahead and do the metallics on his hand. I needed a open hand for the grenade throw, because I couldn't find any models that actually had grenade throws, so I made my own. I cut off the hand from this arm, and I super glued a robotic one that I had that was open, and then I glued a grenade into it. And while you can't tell because it's already primed and such, I actually did some two-part epoxy mold into this joint to actually make it look natural. Otherwise, it would literally be the flat part of an arm that's supposed to be straightforward like this. You can't see that, but doing a baseball throw was not something this model was designed to do, so I filled it in with some putty. So, for metal color, I am using Vallejo metal color. It is amazing. It's probably one of the best metallics I've used. I highly suggest it. I picked mine up at Hobby Lobby of all places. Is the only place that had it locally for me. I have been looking for it for years locally. I didn't want to buy it online, but yeah. It is meant for airbrushing, the one I found, but I have not had any issues with coverage using it from a brush, so I highly suggest it. This stuff really is just fantastic. It gives such a realistic metal, and when you go in with the lighter metallics, you can do scratches and dings and highlights with metallics, which is something that it's not usually very easy to do, because I've noticed most metallics I've worked with don't have enough body to them in order to do that sort of thing. That tastes weird. I mean, I didn't lick my brush. Never lick your brush, people. Now, when you do towel, a lot of the time you don't want exposed metal, but we're going back to that idea of not standard towel, or they've been in the field long enough that a lot of the gear has either worn or that sort of thing, which we're going to push that idea with some cleaner weathering techniques, like paint scratches and even metal scratches through the armor coating. Yeah. Alright, so that metallic is base coated. We're now at the point where we're going to start painting the orange. So the first step of that is actually doing touch-ups to the primer coat with some pure white. I use Liquitex titanium white heavy body as my white, because good lord, hobby companies can't make a nice white. I've noticed that pretty much every the greater good. I've noticed that most hobby paint that's white comes out super clumpy, and it just is super inconsistent. It dries off white. it is a major grief for me. Yeah, so actually for the heavy body, you can see on my palette that it's super thick. And so instead of thinning it with water, I actually thin it with white ink. So I don't lose any pigmentation during the thinning process. Is it unnecessary? Most likely. Do I care? Not really. It's what works for me. May not work for you. Mileage may vary. Alright. Gonna mix it to a consistency I like. One of the benefits of using a wet palette is that you can do this sort of thing and the paint doesn't dry out too quick. Alright, that's a consistency I like for white. A little thicker because white really needs help with coverage. There we go. Alright. We're just going to come back and anything that's supposed to be orange, we're going to touch up with that white. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want some nice coverage because the better coverage we have here, the easier the orange is going to go on. Yeah, so like here, just slowly work it up. This is the point you want to be careful because you could also just completely ruin your darker colors that you initially put on by just putting a straight up white layer on it. Now, you notice when I'm going over some of the parts lower on the model, like, well, that's now a really bright highlight. Even if I don't have to touch up all this, I didn't get any other colors, I'm just going to go ahead and throw a thin layer of white on just to get it to a more consistent tone, because the orange will definitely show that inconsistency. Actually, tonight is, I think, going to be one of the first times on stream, besides for the goblins, that I'm actually going to be using a paint from my suggested paint set below. I really like the orange that came in that set. I find it extremely nice. It's actually going to be the base tone for this entire unit. It's extremely vibrant orange. It's actually the most vibrant orange I have. Alright, let's touch up these belts. I'm going to hit these. I don't know if I'm still in frame. Alright. I think we're almost ready to start doing orange. Now, I noticed something recently, is that I am a lot faster painting on stream than when I'm not. It's weird. To get this base coating down on the test model, it took me like an hour and a half just to get all the base tones down. And now I'm almost started on the orange, and we are 20 minutes in. Just an observation of mine. Alright, I think we're good to start on the orange. Actually, I spoke too soon. We're going to start hitting this oculus a little bit. Doop. And I think I'm going to do that oculus orange. All right. And gonna go ahead and hit this gun because I totally forgot to hit it with the primer apparently. Cool. All right, now we're gonna start on the orange. All right, so we're using clear orange from Vallejo model color. It's in the starter set in the link below. It's really a fantastic orange. I really like it, but you do need to mix it really well. So cue Star Trek camera shake. Okay. I really can't get over just how nice this orange is. It does need to be thinned just a little. Alright, so here we go. Orange, just start slathering it on. Slather. So you notice that sometimes when I'm base coating, I'm doing a stippling technique. And it's mostly just to make sure I'm getting it into all the little cracks and crevices. Now, you have to make sure that you have properly thinned, or you have let me start over. Orange is a color that you really need to figure out how to glaze. This is a color that does not go on smoothly first coat. It just doesn't. It is extremely hard to get a good first coat of orange, and if you try, it's just going to gloop on. So you're just going to keep going over the same areas, trying to get some nice coverage as the paint dries, in order to get it smooth looking and not a streaky mess. So we're just gonna, and you notice when I'm getting into areas that are a little tighter, I'm using the side of my brush so I don't hit any of the areas I've already painted. Because a good way is if you're using your brush in a perpendicular fashion, you won't get any of the other edges. You'll just hit the highest points. So. I'm really hoping I'm staying in this frame like 70% of the time. So the helmet's going to be a really obvious place for how streaky orange can get. Go ahead and get some orange into these little ocular sockets. Now these heads, or the helmets on the belt, are an idea I actually saw in the official models for the Killteam box that had Tau. The Blooded Veteran. I do not know the actual, like, Tau names. He had his helmet on his belt along with some other stuff. I'm like, oh my god, that's a great idea. I want to include that in all my head, like helmetless models. I'm gonna just put their helmet on their belt, I guess, if they just clipped it there. But the problem is that nobody does helmets that are don't have a head in them, so I had to clip out all the like necks and head bits for the actual helmets in order to actually get this effect. And my wife can tell you that she's still finding bits of those models around our apartment. try as I might to do it inside of a container or not have them go flying. So we're just gonna keep on base coating here. It's gonna be the longest part of this entire paint job is base coating this orange, because orange is not a very pigmented color. I would almost consider it as bad as yellow as far as difficulty to paint. But as long as you start with a yellow undertone, and I bet I didn't do this time mainly because I don't feel like I needed it for these guys, but if I really wanted to create some high contrast shadows and that sort of thing, is have a red undertone for where I wanted the shadows, but it'd have to be like a fairly light coat of red, like a glaze of red for the shadows. I'm not too worried about this center emblem. Ooh, let me get back in frame. I'm not too worried about this center emblem because I will be repainting it blue. Now, you may ask, like, oh, Kieran, why did you do orange for these guys if it's such a difficult color to paint? The reason is simple. Using the color wheel, the most contrasting and complementary color to orange is blue. It's on the opposite side of the color wheel. So typically if you want to do a shadow to that color, you do a desaturated blue so that you can shadow a saturated orange. Or if you're painting a model, you want to have your two main colors be on opposite sides of the color wheel in order to create visual interest and to make the colors pop. So blue and orange are on the opposite sides of the color wheel, and it makes both of those colors pop fantastically. And you don't have to go straight blue. This is actually a teal highlighted with blue, which we will get to before the washing stage. I'm typically a don't do your highlights until after you throw a wash on the mini. That usually brings all your values back up. It makes the model look a little cleaner. But when you're doing an oil wash, do all your highlights ahead of time. The wash is your second to last step, because the actual last step is wiping off part of the wash with a Q-tip after it's already dried. It's a pretty wild experience. Try not to hit anything I've already painted in this little spot. Alright. Now, I am beginning to notice there are a couple spots that I kind of missed touching up with white, but that's fine. I can touch them up with highlights in a little bit, or I can just kind of go over it until it is saturated. It's just going to take a bit longer. Alright, so we're almost done. Well, actually, we're not at all, but I'm going to say that because I said it. Alright, just finished painting up those belts. Gonna tuck in here and get one of these little details way tucked in here that you probably can't see. I've had quite a few people talk to me like, Kieran, why do you not use like the super high detail brushes? And I've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again because why not? Why don't you use the super small high detail brushes? And the answer is simple. They're not that great. They don't really do that much. If you have a nice sharp brush, it doesn't matter if it's expensive. If you have a nice brush, if you have a brush that has a nice full body but keeps a sharp point, you do not need a tiny detail brush. Why? Well, a tiny detail brush dries out super quick. You're going to be able to get 1-2 strokes out of it maybe before the paint is dry on the bristles, and therefore the brush isn't going to last very long because you do not want paint drying on your brush. It is terrible for it. It's terrible for the longevity. It's bad. Bad news bears. So if you're using, this is a number 2 brush. That's actually fairly large even by professional painter standards that follow the same advice I do, which is as long as you got a sharp tip, it doesn't matter how large the brush is. There's a like asterisk next to that. There's caveats, but in general terms. But tiny ass detail brushes, they don't get you anything. They just don't. Now, when you're first starting out, yes, they can be beneficial because you don't have that brush control. You don't know how much pressure you're supposed to apply while you're painting. But after you've been painting like even 5 or 6 models, you should have enough brush control at that point in order to just utilize a larger brush with a sharp tip, because you're going to have longer working times. The paint isn't going to dry out as quickly, i.e. you have longer working times. And it's just going to be, it's not going to be as tedious to constantly wash out your brush as you're painting. So mainly the reason I use such large brushes that are sharp is because I'm lazy. I don't want to continue washing my brush every 3 strokes. I want to keep painting for like 2 or so minutes before I rinse my brush and reapply paint to it. So there you go. There's the reason. I'm lazy. Alright. Let's actually do the leg armor now. Now, most of my guys, I actually have bare legs on or like they're basically wearing capris. And this would be more blue on the model, but this guy I used armored legs because I wanted to push the fact that he's a demolitions guy. And so maybe he wants a little bit more protection for his legs in case a landmine goes off or something like that. That's the reasoning. It's 100% not just what I had printed already when I ran out of legs as I was building guys. Alright. I'm going to continue applying paint. Just continue this base coating. It can get a little tedious, but the results are so worth it. At first, having such a nice orange at the end. Oop, I just stabbed the microphone with my brush. Ugh. If you couldn't see what I was just doing there, that's okay. I couldn't either. All right. Just realized I forgot to grab a drink for myself before I sat down. All right. So as you can see, this orange coverage is actually already pretty good, and that is thanks to the white primer coat. If you want to do orange, you want to do yellow, any light tone, any pastels, start with white. And it actually goes for a lot of things, is that starting black is good. It's good for a lot of reasons. It's good for if you're not going to use a wash, you already have all those deepest shadows already figured out, and as you're painting, you just go less and less passes of paint into the crevices. You're getting a built-in shadow. But with white, you get a lot more control. You're able to use a lot more pure tones. But that can backfire because that kind of means that you need to apply the shadows yourself, which can be complicated, and that's why I'm using an oil wash for this one. I have anything else to say on that? Not really. Alright, so I have most of the orange base coated, and I'm going to move on to the gun here in a second. I find this one because I actually have to be careful about placement. Like, let's be real. Miniature painting, for the most part, is a fill in the numbers. It's a paint by numbers scheme. This armor ends here. These pants end here. But when you get to detail work like this gun, excuse me, there are different panels that have different colors. And while they're not getting picked up super well on camera, there are little lines in the gun. Maybe I can point them out on this model. You can see very faintly that there are lines that run across the model. So those panels need to be separated out from black ones, which I didn't do the color black because this is difficult. And so by doing orange first and coming back to the black, I can clean up a lot of the mistakes I made with the orange. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and paint this. I'm going to look at the last model I did for reference. That looks like it's orange here. Drag it across. I'm going to come back over this little circle on the gun. I'm going to paint that metallic, but for the same reason I waited to do the black, I wanted to do the orange first for coverage reasons. And then come back and clean it up with the metallics. Probably going to take a break here soon, mainly because my throat is dry. So pretty much as soon as we're done with the orange, I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and then we'll meet back up in just a few minutes. So these guys, I'm actually going to be doing some OSL because I managed to grab some clear blue resin and some really cool files that simulate muzzle flash on these pulse rifle carbines. It's just seems like a super fun thing to do. So we're going to be doing some OSL as if the gun was just firing. Alright, get a bit more orange on here, keep going over it, make sure we have those saturation values up, make sure we don't have to come back and clean anything up later. Want some nice solid coverage. Looks like we have a little cleanup to do. We're going to touch that up in a minute. Alright, let's get this Oculus painted. We're going to go with a black band holding it onto his face. Alright, let's do a little bit of cleanup. Come back. on these pants, clean up these lines, any little over paint we did. Super careful in here. It's alright, it's not dry yet. Just rinse off your brush, come back over. Just a clean brush and go back over that. Bada bing, bada boom. And crisis averted. Let's grab some of our Mornfang and touch up the bottom of this backpack here. And alright. It's pretty much the orange base coated. And it's just about 50 minutes of work. So really, I'm very pleased with the progress we've made on this mini so far. You've been painting as long as me. You can go pretty quick. Alright. Just in time the paint was actually starting to dry on my palette. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a short break so I can grab a drink. And when we get back, we're going to be doing the black and blues. That sounds wrong, but we're going to be doing the blue and black next on this model before we move on to highlighting, and then we're going to be doing the oil wash. Alright, I'll see you guys in a bit. Say 5 minutes. Alright. And if I can find my pause. There you go. Alright, see you guys in a few. All right, we're back. I've got my ginger beer, and we can get back to painting. Okay. All right, before I get any further, I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys how I cheat at eyes a little bit. I recently picked up some fine liner pins. I think it was from Walmart. These guys. This is how I cheat at doing eyes. I'm going to grab the red one. And I'm going to go ahead and pop off this cap. And this is totally cheating, but I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and draw in the red of the eyes using this pen. Boom, just like that. The red of the eye is in. I'm going to come back. I'm going to do a couple things with this eye. Namely, I'm going to make it a little larger than I need it to be. And then as soon as that's dry, which does take a while with these pens, they for some reason take forever to dry. I'm going to come back, I'm going to put a white dot in the middle of the eye, and then I'm going to go back over it with the pen in order to really push that reflective eye quality, as if it's looking directly at you, which... See that? Versus that right now. All right. Ooh. All right, we're gonna keep painting. So, before we took our break, we were at the stage of doing black and blue. Star Trek camera shake, and all right, I'm just using some Citadel Abaddon black with a little bit of my other secret weapon, ivory black, Liquitex heavy body acrylic paint, just to help with the coverage of the Citadel black. It doesn't have very great coverage, not gonna lie. Alright. Mix those two together for a second. Got a little bit more of the ivory black. Throw it into the Abaddon black. There we go. Something that has good coverage. So, we're going to be careful. We're going to be very careful when painting this on, because we do not want to mess up any of the orange we've done, or any of the other colors for that matter, because painting over black sucks. Takes forever. Not really. Cool. So we're painting the grenades on his belt right now. I've seen some people paint them blue and like the colors, the armor, but that just seems too much of the same to me. So I don't like doing that. I'd rather just paint them black and then do a dry brushing of gray over to create some visual interest. So, oh wow, I got the shakes. And my chair. Ooh. I'm so sorry, everyone, for that shake. Really shouldn't have my cameras, both my cameras and my lights and everything attached to my desk, but I don't have space for anything else. So this is what we're stuck with. Okay, got the grenades painted. Base coat in black. We're going to now work on the gun, because that is the most difficult part of this. So being very careful. We're going to go ahead and fill in the black portions of this pulse carbine. Very careful. Doop, 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 doop. Following the contours of the lines on the pulse carbine. Making sure I'm in focus. Oh, messed up a little there. So. Back. Before it dries. Boom. Rice is averted. The concentration is real. That's interesting. It's almost like there's a gloss coat over the orange right now. All right. All right. Switch to grip. Oh, enable me to paint the barrel a little bit better. All right. Damn. All right. Crisis wasn't so averted that time, but that's fine. We can touch up some orange and be right as rain. Take our drinks. All right. Some good old ginger beer. I like drinking this stuff just straight. It's so refreshing. No mixers. Alright. I'm back. Alright. Just now realizing that I completely forgot to do the antenna on his head. Throw a little bit more of the clear orange on my palette. Go ahead and stay in frame. Alright. So that's pretty much the black done now. Just gotta do a couple touch-ups. try to do a little pin dots. Ooh, I'm not gonna try to do this with my brush. I'm gonna do another cheat. Alright, I'm gonna find my super fine tip architecture pin. And get it right onto the barrels. There you go. My pin drill, my electric pin drill, is supposed to be coming this weekend, which I'm very excited about. I'll be able to drill out barrels and such, super easy. Anyways, we're gonna keep on moving. We're gonna start on blue for these guys. We're gonna start with Altdorf Guard Blue by Citadel. Yeah. Cool. It's kind of a mid-tone blue. If we're working in triads, this would probably be like the layer paint, not the base coat, but not the highlight, just a nice layer. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and do this center symbol. Try to be as careful as possible not to get outside the center symbol. Alright. And now onto the base coating the feathers. I'm going to be coming a lot back with a lot more highlights for the feathers in order to make it unique to the blue on the chest. But for now, let's just go ahead and base coat it in the same blue so we have a nice jumping off point. This time I realized I forgot to paint some stuff with this, but that's fine. Try to get some good coverage. Again, I'm not overly concerned with getting perfect coverage for this blue, because if it's getting chipped or there's a little bit of orange showing through, that just means that through the weathering of life and use, the blue paint has been chipping off and the orange is showing underneath. Excuse me, I forget how burpy ginger beer gets me. Alright. Oh, hands are shaking. Let's grab some more black. Have it on black and ivory black mixed together, and throw a little bit of coverage here. Shouldn't take that much because it is the shadows and wasn't hit by the Zenithal Prime. Cool. All right. This point in time, it's mostly just making sure that I don't need to touch anything else up. Let's go ahead and throw... This is Oak Brown by Army Painter. It's pretty much the only Army Painter paint I have in my collection. I might have one more. I have Purple Tone. I do like their washes. And I also have a Flesh Tone, but I don't really like using that one. I'm going to go ahead and paint the trunk of this tree, just because it's easier to do right now. I'm going for kind of a jungle base for these guys. Just seems interesting to me. I'll probably throw an acrylic wash on anything on the base, just because it's not a visual, it's not where the focus is. So if it's a little dirty, a little fuzzy, it's actually going to help the rest of the paint job, or the bigger picture, the greater picture. Yeah, so we're just going to do a quick and dirty base coat of this, mainly so I can finish doing his feet that are on the trunk of the tree. Because I wanted a dynamic pose, but the only way that I was going to make that happen is if he was like pushing off the tree, which is what I did. I'm going to come back and paint the inside of this tree a different color. But that's pretty good. I'm already pretty much ready to call it on the trunk of the tree. Please get off. There we go. I'm just going to grab some black and finish off the armored boots that are pushing off the tree. Please, for the love of God, cover. Another thing I don't really like about army painter paints is that they take forever to dry. I don't understand why. Like, I understand it's paint, it needs time to dry, but it takes forever. A little bit of black in places I don't want, so I'm going to come back with the orange, a little thick. Alright. So, at this point, I say that a lot. At this point, alright, I'm going to start doing the ocular, like, lenses and stuff. I'm going to grab some white. Making sure it's nice and smooth and, opaque. That's the word I'm looking for. That is very thick. Can I get a little sharper, please? There you go. I'm just going to hit these lenses. What is most in focus? There. Fill it in white. And there's also little circles on his forearms. Pop a little white on there. Anything that's reflective, I'm going to pop a little white on it right now. And coming up to his eye. It's very thick. Please sharpen up. There we go. I'm going to come in and tap a little bit of white. That has not dried yet. Alright. So we're going to start working on highlights. I'm going to start with blue. Starting with the feathers, because this color is a it's a direct electric blue highlight. Just going to come up. Start hitting some of the edges, maybe some feathering on the feathers. I want these guys to read as fairly bright. I want kind of different tones of blue on this paint job, just because I find it more interesting. Then I'm going to take the same, this is Reaper Dragon Blue, just an FYI. And then I'm going to be mixing it 50-50 with the Sotek Green in order to get some highlights going. And I am glazing this on. I'm doing pretty thin coats. I want this to read as mostly teal still. So, it's already looking pretty good. We're going to come over and hit some of these fingers. We're going to grab a little bit of white. There we go. That's more what I want. And chin. Eyebrow ridge. And then put a couple of these. Ooh, that was too much. Too much. Wipe it off with my thumb. Back. Mix a little bit more with the original base tone. Bring back the value that I want. I'm realizing my camera is slowly sagging. There we go. As we go, to a couple little touch-ups. Now, one thing that I recently learned when I was watching another miniature painter on YouTube talk about painting faces. He said that when you're painting faces, you don't do the top-down approach for highlights. You actually do forward-back. Meaning you want all your highlights to be hitting right about here on your forehead. That's where you want the majority of your highlights on a miniature to be, as far as faces are concerned. Otherwise, you want them to be kind of at a downward angle, like this. That's kind of where you want your highlights to come from. You're trying to bring focus to the face. So when we're highlighting this mini, I'm trying to get most of the highlights onto his face, and I'm doing kind of a stippling technique because skin isn't super smooth. It's imperfect, and so I'm going to be stippling on these highlights because I don't want it to feel consistent. I don't want it to feel buttery smooth. I want it to be a texture. I want the armor to be smooth because that is a smooth surface, but I don't want the skin to be. So we're just going to keep coming back. A couple of fingers we're going to hit with these highlights, the knuckles mainly, along the top. Right now, we're in the highlighting stage. We are done with base coating, and we've moved on to the highlighting stage completely. I'm going to see if this red is dry yet. Please be dry. It is not. So we're going to be waiting a bit more. But we can just keep highlighting other stuff. I'm going to grab Dawnstone. A little bit of Dawnstone from Citadel. You know what? Actually, I'm not. I'm just going to mix some black and white up to get a nice gray. Nice. Exactly what I wanted. Way faster than mixing up something new. And this is a something that's commonly referred to as a pineapple gray because it looks like a pineapple. So I'm just going to take this gray and I'm going to just hit the high points. Give it some love. Doing that using the side of my brush so I don't hit any of the low spots. Almost ending up with a metallic finish on this guy. Then we're going to do the same thing on these grenades on his belt. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and grab a dry brush, which is just a older brush in my life. wipe off the majority of the paint, and then I'm going to use the side of the brush, not this way, and just dry brush these grenades. They're not as textured as the pineapple grenade in his hand, so they're just going to pop a little bit, going to look a little bit more. So I might come back with the metallic. You know what, let's go ahead and try that. Why not? Make sure we get the majority off, and then there we go. That's pretty much exactly what I wanted from these guys. Kind of a light metallic sheen, like they're black, but they're a little worn. They've been on his belt a while, or that's just how the paint looks. A lot of, there's metallic blacks, a lot of powder coating has that kind of metallic sheen to it. It's glossy. We're gonna keep moving on. Kind of clean up from the dry brush a little bit by reapplying the base tone. Alright, so we're going to highlight the backpack now. I use the Baylor Brown to do that. And I'm not even going to mix it with Morphine Brown. I'm literally going to stipple and edge highlight this leather and even put a couple scratches in it as I go. So, stipple the high points. Edge highlight the edges. Anything raised, we're going to go ahead and stipple, but then just kind of adding a little bit of texture there. Edge highlight. Edge. Edge. And even kind of inconsistencies in your coverage kind of become a texture to the backpack. So we're just going to keep hitting this where we want it to. Pop a little bit. How about there? How about there? Boom. Let's go ahead and just stipple a little on the side. There we go. That's the backpack. I'm going to go ahead and take the black, realizing I forgot to do the headband. And very carefully. Apparently not very carefully. Come on. How do we take some brown? We're just gonna do that. The black, I'm just not having good luck with tonight, so we're just gonna edge highlight with this brown to get this. You probably can't see what I'm doing right now. Neither could I. It's fine. Clean up what I messed up. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to take some of that Baylor Brown. We're going to mix it with the brown we were using for the base coat of the pants. Mix the Baylor Brown with the Rhinox hide. And we're going to do some highlighting on the pants. This is a pretty subtle effect, but it's kind of important, or else it's gonna look unfinished next to the rest of the model. Not that there's much to highlight on these pants. There's not really a lot of edges, so we're just going to stipple. There's not a lot to. A big part of miniature painting is just creating texture, creating visual interest, making things look a little more interesting than they might be. So I'm just going to stipple to create some visual interest and make it look like a fabric texture by stippling. Wow, I am not in focus right now. There we go. I'd be asking, oh, what did Kieran do to his arm? Or finger, not his arm. I don't know. I don't know what I did. was eating dinner. I'm like, oh, I'm bleeding. So that's what I did. Probably did it at work. So many considerations. Yeah. When you're painting miniatures, it really is, you're trying to keep a lot in mind as you're painting. But when you've been doing it for a while, or you're just trying to keep, like, you're trying to make it look like a particular material. So if I'm doing fabric, I'm going to be doing a lot more stippling techniques. But if I'm doing like a metal or something, I'm going to be doing a lot more blending, wet blending. I'm going to make it look like smooth transitions, because those are not rough materials for the most part. What I'm doing right now is I'm cheating again. I'm using those fine tip pins that I picked up from Walmart a couple weeks ago, and they're kind of translucent, so I'm sticking them over the white highlights of the lenses that I was making white earlier. Like this guy, that's actually like some sort of light and kind of glossy. So I did the white, and now I'm doing the blue, and once that's dry, I'm going to come back with white and do a specular highlight to make it look reflective. So there we go. That lens is now blue. I'm going to check if this red is ready to be painted on yet. Good lord. Still not dry. Alright, so we're at the point where we're going to start edge highlighting the orange. So I'm going to be using, for edge highlighting and kind of just the highlighting in general, I'm going to be using Troll Slayer orange from Citadel. It is a kind of lighter, almost more electric orange. Nowhere near my, what is this color? Fluorescent orange. It's nothing like this, but it really does a good highlight on this particular orange. So this one, I'm not going to be actually edge highlighting so much. I'm actually going to be doing mostly like general smooth highlighting work on this guy. And while you're not going to be able to tell a difference for the most part versus the base coat, just because this orange doesn't have a high amount of coverage, it is really going to, in the long term, bring up and maybe desaturate the base coat a little bit to read more as orange than like a burnt orange. So we're just going to be hitting some highlights on this guy. I'm ignoring downward facing panels, or really panels that aren't really near the face so much. Remembering to reapply paint to our brush every so often. Looks like I forgot to do the lenses on the helmet, so we're going to go back and do those in just a sec. As soon as I have some of these highlights done. Again, using mostly the side of my brush for this. so I don't get any paint where I don't want it. Let me go ahead and grab some white and fix those lenses like I was just talking about. So, helmet. See these lenses right here? I'm going to go ahead and paint those white. Alright, we're just going to keep doing some highlights here. Again, it's a pretty subtle effect. I don't even know if it's picking it up on camera very well. But it really does help sell this orange. Bringing up its values as we go. We're pretty much at the point of moving on to edge highlights on orange. Which I'm going to be making kind of a weird choice for my edge highlighting color. It is a very brown, desaturated orange, and I'm going to edge highlight with this. It is Jacaro orange from Citadel. I don't have a lot left. I need to pick more up. Just throwing a little bit on my palette. If any comes out of the bottle. There you go. Got a little bit. I'm going to mix a little bit of the Troll Slayer orange into this. Just to bring up the value a tad. Not much. It's almost a skin tone. And then I'm just going to start edge highlighting. It's really going to make all the little edges stand out. And I'm even going to come in and I'm going to hit next to all these little lines on the gun to try to bring these values into focus. All these little edges, raised edges on the armor pieces. I'm going to hit the edge of my brush. Any edge. If there's a recessed portion, I'm hitting the edge of that recessed portion. It's starting to make all that work we did earlier of blending really come together. Making it really obvious what we did. Let's see, is it in focus? All right. Gotta keep on going. All these fun little edges, just making sure. All right. We're getting pretty close here to start moving on to a little bit more of the fun stuff like scratches and kind of the more fun weathering patterns. Just making sure I hit some edges down at the bottom here. Not too worried about the bottom. We're not making those a focus, but I am going to go ahead and make sure that there is some highlighted values down here. All right. Go ahead and take the blue pen. Go ahead and finish off these lenses. There we go. Take some of this white. Make sure I have a nice bit of it on the end of my brush. Come into the eye. It's a little too much, but that's fine. I can fix that. I'm in with the original skin tone. Clean it up a little bit. Wait for that to dry, and we're going to move on to fix my headphones a little bit. Take a drink. We're going to move on to scratches. I'm going to take some of my Chicaro orange, and I'm going to add white to it. The color we were just edge highlighting with. Yeah, get it pretty thin, and then just come in very lightly. Start making little scratches. Doing super fine touches, trying to add just some extra texture, make it look like they've been out for a while. On the legs, I'm gonna do a lot because mainly they've been running a lot. Most of the brush they're pushing their way through is around their legs. And some of these edge highlights, I'm just going to go ahead and hit with this scratch to really make them pop. Alright, I'm going to now take a some of that Baylor brown and white, do the same thing. I'm going to do more scratches, just a little bit different tone. I'm going to grab a little bit of my orange, add that into it. Some of my Troll Slayer orange. Get it nice and thin. Come back, more scratches. edge highlights. I'm not doing quite as many scratches with this, just because it is a lot brighter. And we're going to throw a couple scratches into the blue. All right. We're now going to take some pure white, thin it way down. Make sure the point is nice and sharp. We're going to come back into these lenses. Okay, I need a little bit more white on that. Just hit little dots of color onto them. Might be most apparent on this guy. That's super important when you're doing the spectral highlights on lenses, is that all the spectral highlights are the same direction. So I'm choosing just to the upper left, tap in all 3 spectral highlights right here. Boom, boom, boom. They're all coming from a light source like I'm pretending is right here. There we go. And boom. I'm gonna take the cheater red, go back over the eye, and because it's so translucent, you can still see the white underneath, and it makes it look like he actually has a pupil focusing on something. All right, I'm saying that those highlights are pretty good. I'm going to take some of the dragon blue and mix it with the Altdorf blue to get a little bit of a highlight. And I'm just going to hit the edges of this blue, make it look a little bit cleaner again, as if there is a border between the two. Alright, I'm going to grab some of my metal color aluminum Vallejo. I'm going to do some highlights on the metallic portions. So, okay, go ahead and tap each of these fingers using edge highlighting. Just to bring those values up. Maybe hit some of the edges of these guys. Tap centers. Then I'm going to take some of the silver and paint the circles on these guns. All right, wait for those to dry a little bit. Then we're going to take the aluminum and do some highlights on the silver. All right, so at this point, I'd be throwing, if it wasn't 10:30 at night and I didn't have neighbors, I'd be using my airbrush to throw a gloss coat on this. And then I'd be doing an oil wash. Because I said in the title that that's what we're going to be doing, I am going to show you guys how I make an oil wash. I'm going to go ahead and do that before I do a close to the stream. I'm going to grab a little cup. One little cup. And I'm going to take some oil paint, this instance raw umber, because I want a dark brown wash. Gonna throw not a lot at all in there. And I'm gonna take some mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. I keep this on my desk because the bottle is too big. And I'm going to add roughly to that first line in mineral spirits, to that amount of paint. And this is such a do it by ear sort of thing that you're going to mix the oil paint in and you're going to look for a pretty thin, almost milk-like consistency. And the reason I like using these cups for this is there's a nice edge on the side, and I'm just gonna see how it's running down the rim. That's exactly what I want for the consistency of this wash. So I want it to stay in the resources or recesses and not spill over. So that's pretty much a perfect oil wash right there. You want to do it over a gloss coat just to really push that words are difficult right now, to really push how effective the wash is. Where did there. And you use mineral spirits to rinse off your brush. Don't rinse it in water because it's oil paint. Now, forewarning, oil paint ruins brushes, so use cheap ones. You know what? I think I'm going to call it into stream. We made some good progress on this guy. It is 10:30. I don't want to be rude and use my air compressor to do airbrush to apply my gloss coat. And I don't want to ruin the mini by doing brush on gloss coat. You can thin it down and use it if you have an acrylic gloss coat, or just use a rattle can one, but I don't have any of either of those on hand. I just have my gloss lacquer that I use for modeling. So yeah, we're gonna call it into the stream. This is the progress we made on this guy. In all honesty, we could call it there. This could be a finished mini, but we're trying to get to this guy. And that means doing a gloss coat, doing a raw umber oil wash in all the recesses, which we'll cover on the next stream. Alright, I will see you guys next time on Tales from the Basement. I'm Kieran. Is Blast, kind of a impromptu short stream, but hey, glad you could join me. I'll see you next time.